Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am here to cover the entire syllabus of Central Warehouse Corporation. So let's begin with the physics portion. In physics portion, first topic is motion. So in this video, I'll cover the most important topics related to motion which will come in the examination. First is what is motion. Motion is when an object changes its position with respect to a reference point in a given time, which means when an object changes its position from initial to the next point, it's moved from the first point to the next point, which is called as motion. So here you can see object is at the M1. When we exert some force, it moved from M1 to the M2. Means its position has changed from here to here. This is called as motion. The change in the position of an object from one position to the next position is called as motion. So it is relative in nature. Means we have to take some reference point to know that an object has moved from one position to the next position. So that's why it is relative in nature. So when we come to measure these motion, we will use the two quantities. The one is scalar quantity and another one is vector quantity. Please make note which are all the scalar and which are all the vector quantities because question has come from this portion in the previous examination. When it comes to say scalar quantity, in scalar quantity we will measure only the magnitude. Example distance and time, which means if we started walking from here to some other point, means we will just measure how much distance we have traveled, but we will not measure in which distance we will be traveling. So we are just covering the magnitude, but we are not taking into consider the direction in which direction we are walking or we are traveling. So that is called a scalar quantity. Scalar quantity has only the magnitude. It will not measure the direction in which we are traveling or the moving. So example for the scalar quantity are distance and the speed. Another one is vector quantity. Vector quantity means here we will consider both the magnitude and the direction in which we are traveling. The example for the vector quantity is displacement and velocity. So please make note of it that distance and speed are scalar quantities, displacement and velocity are vector quantities. Next, what is distance and what is displacement? First one is distance, actual length of a path traveled by a particle in a given interval of time. Means in a given time, how much the particle has traveled from its initial point to the next point is called as distance. While measuring the distance, we will taken into consider all the path in which the object has traveled. Means we will cover the entire path in the distance. Whereas in the displacement, it's the shortest distance between initial and final position of moving particle in a particular direction, which means in distance we will be considering the entire path of travel, whereas in the displacement we are just considering the initial point and the final point. What is the difference between those initial and the final point? That is called as displacement. We will not consider the entire path. We'll just consider the initial and final point in displacement. So the formula of displacement is S is equal to df minus di, which means final distance minus initial distance. So what is the difference between distance and displacement is distance is always positive. Means if we are moving means obviously our position will change from one to the next, means which should be positive. So it's always positive. Whereas displacement may be positive or negative. In displacement, we are not considering the entire path. We are just considering the initial and the final position. That's why displacement, it may be positive or negative. Distance depends on the path followed by a particle. As I said, it considers the path in which the object has traveled, whereas displacement, it does not depend on the path followed by a particle. So as I said, distance is a scalar quantity. It will measure only the magnitude, whereas displacement is the vector quantity which measures both direction and magnitude. Next important topic in the motion is speed and velocity. So we heard so many times that speed means distance traveled per unit time. So speed is distance divided by time. The unit used for measuring the speed is meter per second or kilometer per hour. So if we calculate the average speed means this formula for calculating it is total distance traveled divided by total time taken. It will give us the average speed. Next one is velocity, rate of change of displacement. How much distance it has traveled per unit time is called as speed. How much displacement means at what rate its position is changing means rate of change in displacement is called as velocity. So the formula for calculating velocity is displacement divided by time. So when an object is moving in some direction means when its velocity is changes means either if it changes the direction in which it is following or if it changes the speed. So change in velocity is due to either change in the direction or change in the speed. So when we want to calculate the average velocity means it's sum of initial velocity plus final velocity divided by 2. So as I mentioned, speed is distance divided by time. Here the distance is scalar quantity. So speed is also a scalar quantity. In the velocity, the formula is displacement divided by time. Here the displacement is vector quantity. So the velocity is also a vector. In the speed, we will just measure the magnitude. We will not consider the direction. Whereas in the velocity, we will measure both the magnitude and also the direction in which the object is moving. So what is the difference between speed and velocity is that rate at which particular distance is covered by an object. Means how much distance an object is covered is measured by speed. Where velocity means rate at which an object changes their position in particular direction. So at what rate an object is changing its position in particular direction is measured by velocity. Speed is a scalar quantity. Velocity is a vector quantity. Speed shows how fast an object is moving. It shows the how fast an object is moving. Whereas how velocity, how far an object is moving along with its position. It will also taken into consider the position. Whereas in the speed, it will just give how far it is moving. It will not consider the position or the direction. Whereas in the velocity, it will consider both how far it is moving and also direction or position. So speed never be zero or negative as it considers the entire length, whereas velocity it may be zero, negative or positive. Next important concept is acceleration. Rate of change in velocity with time is called as acceleration. Means with respect to the time, how much its velocity is changing is measured by acceleration. So we know that velocity is a vector quantity means it will taken into consider both magnitude and direction. So in the same way acceleration is also a vector quantity. In the acceleration there are two types, positive acceleration and negative acceleration. When it comes to positive acceleration, when an object is moving in the direction of velocity. So the movement of an object and direction of an object both are in the same direction, then it is called as positive acceleration. When an object is moving in opposite the direction of velocity, which means object movement is in one direction and velocity is in other direction, means that is called as negative acceleration. These are all the most important topics in the motion. So among all these topics, the most important points which you have to remember is the scalar and the vector quantities. So I said speed and distance are scalar quantities, whereas acceleration, velocity and displacement are vector quantities. This is regarding the motion. Thank you everyone. I'll be coming with the next topic in another video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.